Okay, hey everyone, welcome to Resume Building. I was giving a couple minutes for others to come in. We had 21 registered, so we have 15 who are in the building. So thank you guys. In the chat, there is an attendance link for you guys to click on and fill out. So I'm gonna give a couple more minutes for you guys to fill out the attendance link, and then we are going to get started. Welcome again. Thank you all for joining. The attendance link is in the chat. We are spamming the chat with the link now. If you can go ahead and fill it out, it'll be greatly appreciated. All right, I think 7:07 is a great time to go ahead and get started. Don't want to prolong anyone's evening. However, thank you guys for joining. This is the Grow with Google, where Black women lead. So welcome to the Resume Building. And the question is, are you guys ready to get some in-depth knowledge? Because I know I am. So we have two great presenters for you guys, and which are two sorors from Kappa Theta Zeta chapter. And I will go ahead and get into reading their bios for you guys before they start this awesome session. So we have Soror Kendra Bryant. Kendra Bryant is a committed member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, presently serving as the first vice president of the esteemed Kappa Theta Zeta chapter. Since 2003, she has made significant contributions. 2023 has made significant contributions to Grow with Google team, notably in spearheading resume building workshops tailored for both higher education professionals and fellow sorority members. In addition to her roles with Zeta Phi Beta and Grow with Google, Kendra is a multifaceted entrepreneur with ventures across various sectors. Presently, she is deeply engaged in her doctoral studies, concentrating on her research endeavors aimed at formulating a comprehensive training program to bolster small business owners throughout their startup phase, maintenance, and eventually long-term success. A mantra that resonates deeply with Kendra in her entrepreneurial journey is, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. And that is a quote from Winston Churchill. Helping her out this evening will be Soror Andrea Donaldson Carver. She holds the position of Associate Project Manager at Icon PLC, which is a reputable contract research organization. Originally hailing from Sanford, North Carolina, Andrea pursued her academic endeavors at Fayetteville State University, Bronco Pride, where she earned her Bachelor of Science degree in biology. Subsequently, she furthered her education at Benedine, excuse me, is it Benedine, sis? If I'm saying that wrong, please forgive me. University, obtaining a Master of Public Health degree. Currently, Andrea is in the final stages of completing her doctorate in health sciences at Campbell University, with an anticipated graduation date in July 2024. Yes, it's coming up soon. With a steadfast commitment to her field, Andrea is a certified clinical research professional dedicated to advancing the cause of diversity within clinical trials. Outside of her professional pursuits, she finds joy in activities such as reading, dancing, and cherishing moments with her family. Furthermore, Andrea is an active member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, where she contributes to the organization's values and missions. And with further ado, I am going to stop my screen sharing and I'm going to pass it over to Soror Kendra Bryant.
Good evening, ladies. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you so much for attending this evening. I'm going to try to make this as interesting and fun as possible, but we're going to get some great information that will help you continue with writing or creating your resume. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so our class tonight is Improve Your Resume with Practical Strategies. Okay, and Soror Versatavia Ford Godfrey has already introduced me, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So tonight I'll show you how to improve your resume using simple and practical strategies. And this class will be approximately about 55 minutes. So it's not going to be that long, but you're going to get some great information. This is my lovely co-host here. All righty. So we're here today to talk about resumes.
First, Brian, can you share your screen again?
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it wasn't on. Okay, can you all see now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it wasn't on. Okay, so let me go back one. Okay, so now we are here today to talk about resumes. First, we'll touch on ATS, or applicant tracking systems, an important first hurdle for your resume before it even reaches the recruiters. Then we'll try a quick glance resume evaluation activity. You'll look at some resumes quickly to get a sense of how formatting and errors might make a poor first impression to a hiring manager. After that, we'll dive into 4 strategies that make any resume better using professional formatting, highlighting your skills and accomplishments, citing specific examples and measurable details. For each strategy, we'll practice editing a resume, and I'll share digital tips that can make resume writing easier. By the end of the session, you'll be ready to create your own resume or to apply these strategies to your existing resume. Your edits will help your resume stand out to a hiring manager and get you closer to that interview. So let's move on to talk about strategies you can use to improve your resume. So we're going to take a minute to think about the purpose of a resume. How much time on average do you think an employer spends looking at a resume? Some people may say 5, 10 minutes, or even 30 minutes. We often assume that the employer will read our resume from top to bottom, but that's not really the case. Are you surprised to learn that most recruiters and employers only spend about 6 to 10 seconds looking at a resume? Remember, the goal of a resume is to showcase the skills and accomplishments you have to make the employer want to call you for an interview. You want to convince them that you're a good fit for the job that you're applying for, and they don't need to know everything that you've done to accomplish that. So now many companies use what we call the applicant tracking system, which I'll refer to as the ATS, as a starting point when considering job candidates. The ATS is a type of software that sorts through resumes and applications, selecting which ones to pass on to a human recruiter. ATS also helps recruiters by streamlining the review process and allows them to quickly and easily track, review, and identify applicants. For candidates, this means that if you want a recruiter to ever see your resume, you need to make sure that it gets through the automated system, which is known again as the applicant tracking system. But unfortunately, the ATS system can't look at a resume and make a thoughtful decision on an individual candidate that a human can. So they may wind up eliminating certain resumes due to formatting or issues that keeps them from being able to read the resume. So here are some tips to help you make sure your resume makes it through the ATS and into the hands of a human recruiter. The image on the right is one resume that meets the requirements I'm about to mention. Use of the right file type, ATS systems are best able to read .x and PDF files. If you create a resume using Google Docs, you can download it as a .x or a PDF. Keep formatting simple. Since ATS scans resumes for keywords, it can be easily confused by fancy formatting, graphics, or even tables, multiple columns, and different text boxes. If an ATS isn't able to read your resume, it will reject it. So keep your formatting relatively simple. Later in the workshop, I'll show you some Google Doc templates, which all work well with the ATS system. And lastly, use keywords from job descriptions. ATS systems are shown the job listing in order to learn which words to seek out in resumes. So when the ATS detects those keywords, relevant skills, and years of experience in your resume, it'll flag you as a qualified candidate. For this reason, you should adjust your resume to reflect the words used in the job listing. Avoid headers and footers. Many ATS systems can't read headers and footers well, so make sure you don't put any critical information like your contact in a header or a footer. So now that you understand how the ATS works, you can make choices that will ensure your resume gets through applicant tracking systems and in the front of a human recruiter. For the rest of this workshop, we'll be focusing on how to impress the recruiter. And let me say, if anyone has any questions, please put it into the chat box, and Soror Carver will address those questions as well. Okay, so let's start with a little challenge here. So imagine for a minute that you're a hiring manager looking for someone to fill a position. You know what you're looking for, but you're busy. And there are a million things on your to-do list. So now you're trying to get through a large stack of resumes before lunch in 30 minutes. These resumes have already made it through the ATS system. So we'll do an activity to help you get a sense of how resumes make a first impression. For this activity, make sure that you have a pen and paper nearby or digital notes so you can document and access it easily. So first, we'll look at a sample job description. Then I'm going to show you 6 examples of resumes. You'll have about 7 seconds to look at each resume and process it. Then I'll click to the next one. For each one you see, write down one word that describes the resume and then decide with a quick yes or no if you would like to spend more time on it. Then we'll move on to the next resume. You can write down your word and your eyes can say yes and no on a piece of paper in front of you, or take, again, a digital note. Okay, so here's the job description, along with some of the skills that you might be looking for, and I'll read the job description. We seek a high professional to join our sales team. The successful candidate will be a responsible, motivated sales associate with proven experience. This person will manage the entire sales cycle, identifying sales needs, locating and expanding new markets, designing and delivering sales presentations, and presiding over negotiations. To meet or exceed personal and departmental sales goals, you'll need excellent customer service skills and entrepreneurial worldview, business acumen, and a professional sales philosophy. So keep this description in mind as we review the next 6 resumes. If you're watching on a smaller screen, you may want to maximize it to a bigger screen so that when you're reading the resumes, the smaller words will come up a little bit better. So you don't need to remember all of the details. In fact, looking at the resumes quickly will help you mimic what hiring managers experience as they work. Just take a quick scan of each resume and jot down your first impressions. The purpose of the activity is to look at the resumes through the eyes of a hiring manager so that you can get a better craft of your own. So remember, you're writing down one objective that describes the resume, plus a yes or a no on whether you want to spend more time looking at that particular resume. So ready? Here we go. Okay, this is Asha's resume. Write down a word or 2 about your impressions of this resume, and you'll have 7 seconds. On to the next. This is Adam's resume. Write down your quick impression of it. You'll have 7 seconds. This is Titus' resume. Write down your impressions in a word or two. You'll have 7 seconds. Up next is Jason's resume. Again, 7 seconds. Here is Leanna's resume. 7 seconds to view this one. And finally, we have Abraham's resume. Write your impression. You'll have 7 seconds. Okay, so now let's move on to talk about strategies you can use to improve your resume. While there's no one right way to write a resume, there are many different resume styles and formats that might be appropriate for the job you're applying for. So today we'll focus on 4 key things you can do to strengthen your resume. Choosing a professional format, highlight your skills and accomplishments, use specific examples and measurable details, and finally, tailor your resume to fit a specific job description. We'll return to these sample resumes as examples throughout the workshop. Remember again, the purpose of this workshop is to work on these 4 strategies. And we'll start by choosing a professional format. Okay, so the format you choose for your resume may depend on the job that you apply for. A traditional resume, like Asha's resume on the left, has a standard background and a classic font and an organizational structure. For a more creative field, you may want to submit a resume with less traditional design and format, like Abraham's on the right. This resume uses more colors overall and has a unique organizational structure, including career details in 2 separate columns. Now, as you saw in the quick glance activity, there are many different ways to write a resume, and none of them are incorrect. But as you reviewed each resume, you most likely noticed several issues that hiring managers also see during their reviews that can distract from your resume or keep you from moving on to the interview. One of the most important things to remember is that your resume should be professional, organized, and easy to read. Having a well-designed resume that is free of errors and is extremely important in making a good first impression. If a hiring manager is only spending a few seconds on each resume to decide which ones are worth a second look, you don't want to let them be thrown off or get a bad impression just because of formatting and spelling errors. So here are some key attributes to employ when creating your resume. Be sure to include wide margins and a lot of white space. White space is the space on the page that isn't filled with text or graphics. It gives the reader's eyes a little rest while they're looking at your resume. Use simple, readable language. Use clear headings and choose an appropriate font like Arial or Times New Roman. The image on the right is Asha's resume. It's a professionally formatted resume with clear headings and a plain font and wide margins. Contrast this with Jason's resume, which is packed full of information and not all of this information is relevant to the job position that he's applying for. While Jason may have selected a legible font type, the lack of white space makes the resume a whole lot difficult to read. There's no break for the eyes, so the person reading it may feel overwhelmed or distracted rather than impressed. Each of you are multi-talented with different experience and interests, so there is so much that you can add to your resume, but it's important to only include details that are relevant to the position that you are applying for. It's usually not necessary to include additional links to social media profiles or websites. Some exceptions, if you're applying to a position as a social media management or manager, you might include links to show that you have a strong social media following. Some designers, writers, artists may have a website that includes a portfolio of their work, which may be helpful. The key is to include links that are relevant to the job only. So here's Adam's resume. On the other hand, it's easier to read than the previous example. There is sufficient white space and the text is not crowded, but readable white space should be balanced with important information. This resume doesn't include any details about responsibilities or accomplishments at his previous jobs. But don't assume that the employer reading your resume will know exactly what you did at each job based on the job title. You also don't want to miss an important opportunity to highlight your successful projects, expanded responsibilities, and measurable accomplishments. You still don't have, you don't have to include every job you've ever done, especially if it isn't relevant to the position you're applying for. If you've been in one career for a long time, add examples of specific details to describe projects and accomplishments, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. And sometimes your work experience isn't the only area of your resume where you can showcase the value of your accomplishments. Be creative. Think about certifications, awards, volunteer work, part-time jobs, and continuing education classes that make you more qualified for the position you're seeking, and include those on your resume. So you may have found some of the colors on Titus' resume distracting. Depending on your industry, it may be acceptable for you to use an accent color. However, too many colors could be distracting to an employer. Also, some of the font types in this resume may be difficult to read. It's easy to stick to one readable font type throughout the entire resume. Depending on your geographic location and the type of job you're applying for, a photo on a resume may or may not be standard practice. Some parts of South America, like Asia, Africa, and Europe, require candidates to include a photo on their resume. And if Titus was applying for a modeling or acting role, a photo might be appropriate. However, even if Titus was applying to a job in one of those regions, he should include a clear photo. Now that you notice the typos on this resume, make sure you take time to review your resume for grammatical errors and typos to show an employer that you are detail-oriented. Okay, so now designing your resume may be a bit intimidating. You may not have a lot of design skills, or perhaps you don't feel comfortable formatting digital formats. Fortunately, you don't need to have design skills to create a professional resume. You can just choose one from a variety of pre-built Google resume templates that have already been done for you. So templates like a pattern you use as a guide, they provide some design elements and formatting that you can use as a starting point for your projects. They also help you keep font sizes and styles consistent throughout the document. Google Docs offers lots of free professional resume templates to get you started. The layout, fonts, and colors are different for each template, but they all contain the same basic information that you'll need for a resume: your contact information, skills, experience, and education, as well as accomplishments or projects you've completed. After you select a template, you can customize the document from there. To access these templates, make sure you're signed into your Google account, then go to Google drive.google.com. Feel free to screenshot this slide for a reference for later. And you can see the different templates that they have here. Now you can just kind of choose a template that you like. So after the workshop, take a look at these templates and think about which one might work best for you. Some of the templates might lend themselves to specific industries. You may want to check one with a colleague or standard styles in your field. For example, a creative person like a graphic designer may want to use a more creative resume template to show off their skills even before the interview. You just won't go into each template today, but feel free to explore them on your own and come up with your own strategies to use them. So whether or not you use a template to design your resume, you should at least cover the following categories: education, contact information, skills, and work experience. So these are just some of the different ones that they have. Okay, so now we've addressed formatting and first impressions. Let's talk about the next strategy you can use to make your resume more professional, highlighting your skills and accomplishments. Notice this says highlight, not lists. You don't need to include everything that you've ever done. Your resume is not a comprehensive list of all the jobs that you've ever had or a list of all the things that you've been involved in for the last decade. Your goal is to showcase the skills and accomplishments you have and to make the employer want to call you for an interview. You want to convince them that you're a good fit for the job that you're applying for, and they don't need to know anything other than what you put on your resume, and a whole bunch of unnecessary things they don't need to know. But hiring managers do want to see the skills and accomplishments that are most relevant to the job you're applying for. And they'll likely also want to know the most recent work experience you have. So put the most recent work experience first. Don't be afraid to eliminate jobs from your resume that are not relevant to the one you're applying for. Your work experience list does not need to be exhaustive. It needs to highlight the skills and accomplishments you have that are relevant to the job that you are applying for. But at the same time, if you've done your activities like part-time jobs or volunteer work that are closely related to the jobs you're applying for, and you've used that to develop your skills, you want to make sure that you list and include that information on your resume. Now, if you're starting a new career and haven't worked in the field before, examine all job experience or life experience that you have and make those connections wherever you can and add that to your resume. Okay, so quick challenge here. So let's practice deciding which opportunities you might include on your resume and which you should eliminate. Imagine you're applying for a sales position you saw earlier, and in fact, or in the past, you've had the work experience listed on the left: wait staff, cashier, volunteer work, bank teller, babysitting job, and freelance blogging. So let's take a minute to kind of review and think about these positions. If you like, you can share in the comment box which jobs you would include on your resume and which ones you would not, and why. So as you're working, it may also help to consider which specific projects or measurable details that you might include from those positions to show that your past experience is relevant to the job you're applying for. So we'll go ahead and take a minute to do that. You can type your answers or your comments in the chat box. Okay, about 30 more seconds. Fifteen seconds. Okay. So which jobs did you include? Which ones did you decide to leave off? You may have a different opinion than others who are writing their comments, and that's okay. So let's talk about some of the skills we could have pulled from each of these positions and how you might include them on your resume for a sales position, representative position. The image on the right identifies a useful skill for each work experience. So for a wait staff position, you may have been tasked with upselling customers you were waiting on. Anything from telling them about desserts to suggesting specific items to their meal could have been viewed as an upsell activity. As a cashier, you likely engage with customers for the majority of your workday, a skill important to a sales representative. So let's say you raise funds as part of your volunteer work, and we all do that. This experience could be viewed as being very familiar to that of a sales representative. As a bank teller, you likely had to learn the details of every product or service the bank offered. This was a skill specifically included in the sales representative job description. A babysitting job showcases responsibility and multitasking. Freelance blogging work could have required you to negotiate rates for your work with publications or clients. Negotiation skills are important in any sales position. So what should or shouldn't what should you or should you not include on your resume is entirely subjective. Some people may have chosen to include babysitting, while others may think it doesn't apply. It all depends on the skills you've used doing that job and how you describe these skills afterwards. If you decide not to include some of the jobs or experience you had, you could save them and mention them in the interview. That's okay to do that. If you could make a connection to the job you're applying for, or you can just leave them out entirely. It's completely up to you. So the main point of this exercise is to show you that you can choose to include or exclude any of the jobs, depending on your situation. What is key is how you describe the job and which skills you highlight. Remember that word, highlight. Only these could be included in the sales representative resume. If you highlight applicable skills like responsibility, punctuality, customer service, professional attitude, dependable attendance, etc., also, any could be excluded if you've been in the workforce for a long time and have more professional work experience to cover. Or if you mention the experience without following with relevant skills, that's okay as well. Okay, so now many people need to take time off from the workforce for a variety of reasons, including caring for loved ones, furthering their education, or loss of work due to an economic downturn. If you have a gap in your work history for any reason, whether for months or years, you might want to highlight the education or volunteer work you took part in during that time. You can also describe the experience and skills you've gained through managing a household, learning a new language or culture, if you travel, or anything else to show your growth when you were currently unemployed at the time. Another possibility to consider is using a different resume format called a functional resume, like the one shown here. In a functional resume, you organize your employment history by experience and skills rather than time order. You can also use a functional resume if most of your experiences come from different short-term jobs or contract work. You can include a lot of information there. So no matter which resume format you choose, you should also include your continuing education or training that you've taken part of. Even this Google course is something that you can note on your resume. This can include additional coursework of an institute of higher learning, earning a certification online, or completing workshops like this one, as I mentioned earlier. Just be sure that including it will add value to your resume. If it relates to the position you're applying for, then put it on your resume. You can add these to a subsection of your education section of your resume as well, like what you see on this example. Or if your resume is too long, you can create a new section called professional development or something similar. Include just the basic details for each course or program you've completed. The name of the sponsoring school or the organization, the title of the course or the program, the date of completion. You can discuss more of what you learned during the interview. That doesn't need to be on the resume. You can easily add to this section anytime you complete a new course or learn or earn a new certificate. So now let's talk about our third strategy. Maybe you have many things to include in your resume, but don't know which ones to emphasize. So how do you make those connections and show the employer that you're the right person for the job? By using specific examples and measurable details in the descriptions of your work experience to show what you have achieved and accomplished. This is also called showing impact. What specifically have you done and how has it impacted your coworkers, your team, or your company? Lots of people have words like innovative, organized, efficient, leader, and effective communication on their resumes. But how can you show these qualities instead of just using them in phrases? So one way is to use specific examples from your previous experience. Describe specific projects you've worked on, improvements you've made, processes you've developed, or goals you've obtained. Describe the quality of the work you've done in the past to show how it relates to what you could provide to the employer of this new job that you're applying for. The second way is to use measurable details. Whenever possible, to quantify the work you did. For example, you might say you increased sales at your current job. Well, what does that mean? Did you increase sales from one widget to 2 widgets per month, or from one widget to millions of widgets? Show your impact in numbers whenever possible. This is also a great place to add any awards or recognition that you've received. This will show other people how they view your accomplishments. So now let's put this into practice with another challenge. I'm going to show you examples of work experience that you might include on your resume. For each example, list the kinds of measurable details and specific examples you might include this on your resume. So for this resume, for the sales representative position, you might include descriptions like managed a team, train new employees, ran meetings effectively, and sold more than your actual sales target. But how much of these descriptions really make you stand out to your employers? So think about how you could make these skill descriptions more tangible using specific examples and measurable details. You can try rewriting at least one of these descriptions yourself on a piece of paper or a digital document. It's okay to make up examples and details for now. I'll give you a minute to try it out, and then we'll go ahead and continue to talk about that. So just take a minute to try to go ahead and do this part here. Again, we're thinking about how to make these skills a little bit more descriptive and tangible. Okay, we have about 30 more seconds. Okay. So Andrea, do we have any questions at this point in the presentation? Are there any questions in the chat that I can answer?
No, there are no questions in the chat at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and move along. So here's just one example of what your resume might look like once you've added these measurable details. Instead of managed team, you might say managed a team of 8 employees for new hires to 15-year company members. You might say that you trained 15 employees in 2 years. You might specify that you ran weekly team meetings and that 20 people typically attended. You can also include details about what those meetings were usually about. And you can also make you can be specific about sales targets you exceeded. For instance, exceeding them by 0.5% is very different from exceeding them by 20%. Adding specific examples and measurable details gives employers an idea of just how valuable you will be to that employer. Use numbers like these whenever possible to fully showcase your accomplishments. So we'll go ahead and try one more example, this time with volunteer experience, which is what we all do. How could you make this these skill descriptions more specific, using examples and measurable details. It's okay to make up examples and details. So I'll give you all about a few minutes. If anyone wants to volunteer and to discuss, then you can go ahead and unmute and now we'll go ahead and talk about it. Any volunteers? Okay, don't all raise your hand at once. Okay, I'll go ahead and move along. I'm assuming y'all got it. Okay, so here are some ways that you might rewrite the description of your volunteer experience to give hiring managers a better perception of your work. You served meals to over 200 residents and did that for 6 months every other week. You also raised $2,000 from local businesses and prepared 200 pounds of food. Your effort is much easier for a hiring manager to imagine here than if you just write organized holiday events. So I'll give you all a few seconds to go ahead and just kind of read what this says here. Okay. Okay. So you can also apply specific examples and measurable details to a resume if you're shifting your career path within your industry or starting an entirely new career path. More than likely, you'll be able to find some transferable skills. These are skills that you've acquired in one area that are relevant to an entirely different area. Organization, communication, and problem solving are all examples of transferable skills that are vital to just about any profession. So in your resume, you can make a case that even if you haven't worked in the industry before, you have already developed skills in the field and shown success in the kinds of skills and tasks that are needed for the job. So let's say you decide to pursue a career in IT starting as a support technician. Maybe you have experience working in the service industry for a beauty salon. Think about what skills you use in that job that you can include on your resume to show that you have some qualifications despite having no IT experience. You had to manage your daily tasks, which shows that you can plan, organize a schedule. You dealt with customers all day long who had different needs. So both active listening and multitasking are a good skill set. And you had managerial responsibilities. Even if you didn't have the title of manager, then you might mention leadership skills, such as the ability to motivate others to complete shared goals. When you add these skills to your resume, include as many specific and measurable details as possible to emphasize how your previous profession can easily translate to your new one. As you write about your skills, also use a job posting for the new career you're pursuing to see what language it uses to describe the job responsibilities. So if you're posting talks about client work and you refer to people, let's say you refer to people who visited your salon as customers, use something like clients on your resume instead. This will demonstrate to hiring managers that not only do you possess transferable skills, but you also understand how they specifically relate to your new position. So the example on this slide shows a few of those examples. Okay, so far we've learned about professional formatting, highlighting skills and accomplishments, and citing specific examples and measurable details to really make those accomplishments shine. Now, our last strategy is to tailor your resume for each job that you are applying for. So earlier we discussed how businesses use screening of applicant tracking software to narrow the pile of possible candidates before a manager even looks at them. These computer programs scan the resumes for keywords that are in the job description. If those words don't appear often enough in the resume, or if the skills you highlight don't match the job description, the program determines that the person is not a good candidate for the position. So keep that in mind. Keywords of the job description should be on your resume. Even if the employer is not using applicant tracking software, People also tend to scan resumes for keywords with their actual eyes. You'll be most successful when your resume matches the language of a job description. When you create a resume for a particular job, you should incorporate as many of those keywords in your past experience and work history as possible. When you describe your past experience using the same terms the employer used for the job description, you'll have a better chance of passing screening software if the company is using it. You'll stand out more to the hiring manager, and you'll show that you pay close attention to the qualities that they want in a candidate. So let's take a moment to complete one more challenge. Reread the job description we used earlier, jot down a few words from the job description that you would incorporate in your resume if you were applying for the position. One tip, pay attention to the action verbs, industry phrases, and other important terms that you see in the job description too. What will you actually be doing if you get the job? Include specific experiences that illustrate how you did this task in a previous job. Also, look at the characteristics or skills that are mentioned in the description. So let's go ahead and take 1 minute to review the job description and think of words you would incorporate into your actual resume. Okay, we have about 30 seconds left. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. Okay, so what are some of the words you would incorporate into your resume? You might include characteristics like responsible and motivated. We've identified some words that you can use in your own resume to describe your experience. These include identifying sales needs and delivering sales presentations. Incorporate those same words when you describe your own experience to show that you've done these tasks before and you'll be successful at doing them again for this particular employer. So the action words that are in the job description can help you shape the skills list for each job and to include measurable details from your past work experiences. They also help your resume sound professional without sounding forced. So now let's review our 4 strategies in this workshop. We began by looking at sample resumes to see what hiring managers look for. Then we examined 4 strategies for improving your own resume. Choose a professional format. Try to achieve balance so that your resume doesn't look too crowded, too busy, or too empty. Use a template to help with formatting. Starting with the resume template can help. Next, you want to highlight your skills and experience. Include only your most relevant and recent experiences. Next, we'll cite specific examples and measurable details clearly and completely explain your achievements and skills rather than just mentioning them. And finally, tailor your resume to the job you want. Use words from the job description to impress resume screening programs and employers. You can use these strategies as a checklist for revising your own resume. Take a few minutes to think about what strategies are most useful for you. There are many other digital tools that can help you with your job application process as well. We've already mentioned resume templates to lighten the lift of designing a professional looking resume. So here's another way to use digital tools to help you organize information for your resume. Use a digital document to keep a running list of all the things you might consider under work experience. That might include part-time and full-time jobs, side work, you do around the neighborhood clubs or organizations you participate in, volunteer work, and many other things. So I like to mention, in our organization, in Zeta, we do a lot of volunteer work, and that can be listed on your resume. So that's credible experience that you have. You can update a digital document at any time from any device that is connected to the internet. That way, when you go to write or update your resume, you don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about what you did in the past. You will have a complete list to pull from. So the section of digital document on the screen shows a list of work experience applicable to a sales associate position. So this is a good way to keep track of that. Another digital tool tip is to use a digital spreadsheet to track your application process. So this slide shows a Google Sheets spreadsheet. As you apply to different jobs or find out about positions you'd like to apply for, you can track those on a spreadsheet. The job search plan on this screen shows a job search plan that can help you compare different positions, companies, and salaries. If you are applying for too many jobs, you can also use a spreadsheet like this to keep track of the different versions of your resume and to track the status of an application. For example, you can add a list for have not started the application or submitted or scheduled interview, sent thank you note to remind yourself where you are with each application and what tasks you still need to complete. Finally, you can create a digital portfolio in Google Slides, like the one shown on this slide for photography and sound engineering. When you build these projects in Google Docs, Sheets, or Slides, you can access them from any device with Google applications. They save automatically, and you don't have to worry about losing your work. Or if your computer crashes, you can just share the projects or collaborate from anywhere. So Google is great. It's a great tool and resource. So at this point, I've given you several strategies and digital tips. So before we go, let's talk about the next steps. So here are a few ways to move forward with the information you've learned today. Review possible resume templates in the Google Docs template gallery. Choose one that suits your industry, experience, and style. Then examine your current resume and find places to include specific examples and measurable details. Create a running list of experiences that you can use to tailor your resume. So now let's review some of the free resources from Google. So if you enjoy video lessons, subscribe to the Grow with Google YouTube channel at youtube.com/Google Career Certificates. The channel publishes new videos regularly covering topics that can help you grow your skills and your careers. Now, if you're looking to start a new career and land a competitively paid job or build skills to grow in your career, check out Google Career Certificates. Google Career Certificates can give you a path to in-demand jobs and top employers that are currently hiring. You can earn a certificate and prepare for a new career in high growth field in under 6 months. Even if you don't have relevant experience, learn at your own pace and complete the online program on your own terms. Certificates are available for the following fields: data analytics, advanced data analytics, business intelligence, digital marketing, and e-commerce. That's the one that I got certified in that one. IT support, IT automation, user experience design, project management, cybersecurity. You can do all of that through the link that's on this particular slide. So if you want to screenshot that, you can. So Grow with Google is an initiative to help people prepare for work, find jobs, and grow their business. Job seekers can grow their skills in order to find new jobs and advance their careers. Teachers can learn how to put the latest technology to work inside and outside of the classroom. Small business owners can build their online presence and find new customers. Startups, can learn how to get their ideas, their exposure that they need to succeed. And developers can sharpen their current skills and master new ones To learn more, visit google.com/grow. So thank you so much for attending today's workshop. We really truly value your feedback. So if you would take a moment to share your thoughts, we appreciate it. You can access the survey on the link that's on the screen, or you can take a picture, use your camera. But there will be a link that's going to be sent out by Soror Godfrey to each one of you all to complete it again. So thank you again, and I hope that you have gotten some out of the class today.
There's a quick question in the chat. If you can go back to the other slide. Is Tanya asked that, which slide exactly? Is it the one with the Grow with Google certificates? Yes.
Let me see here. No, not that one. She said certificates, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's one more there.
And these are all free classes. Again, I've taken one. They give you 6 months to complete it. I think I did mine in about 6 weeks, and you get an actual certification. Are there any other questions?
There were some questions sent prior to in the registration, so I think I can touch on a couple that you didn't cover already. One of the questions was, how long should your resume be? And I can answer that question if you want to. Soror Bryant, you want to answer it?
You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Okay, so your resume should be no longer than 2 pages, regardless of how much experience you have. The exception for that, if it's more than 2, like 3 to 7 pages would be a government resume, which has a lot of requirements. If you are doing a career change or a recent graduate, it should be a single pager. And the next question is amount of time being unemployed. If you have unemployment on your resume, if you have volunteer work, like Soror Bryant mentioned earlier, you can use that as employment or some type of employment, even though you were not paid for it. And then I have one more question. In regards to interpreting military duties into civilian duties. There are lots of resources and information out there. I know the University of San Francisco has one where it shows you how to transpose your military duties, even your military titles, to civilian titles. So if you search using Google, you will definitely be able to find that as well. And that's all I have.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Sir Donaldson Carl, for answering those questions. And I just want to touch on one thing. She mentioned about the difference, the page length of the resumes. So one of the resumes is your professional resume is the 2-pager, and your federal resume, like if you're applying for a job on USA Jobs, sometimes they will ask for a federal resume, and that's the one that's probably that is very lengthy, about 7 to 8 pages. Mine was like 9. And what that one does, it just explains in detail what you did, how you did it, and all of that stuff. But those are rarely used. Again, you will use that on a website like USA Jobs. But typically, the professional resume, as Sir Carver said, is about just 2 pages. Okay. Okay. So do we have any additional questions or comments at all?
I do have a comment, Soror Bryant. This was very informative. I'm really impressed with how engaged you got us to be with all of the examples. So would we be able to get a copy of your presentation? I see that it's recorded.
It is recorded. I think for Soror Godfrey, are you going to post it in the on the chapter webpage?
Yes, it'll be probably posted by the end of the week. We do
Well,
have a
that's
YouTube channel, so yes, that's where it will be sent to.
that's great because I know for some people who missed it, this is a lot of great information. I would hate for them to miss out on something like this. Thank you again, Soros.
Thank you, Soror Content. I appreciate that. Soror Fort Godfrey, if you can put our the links in the chat, our Facebook page and the YouTube links, and then people that want to follow up, then they have that available for them.
Sure. Are there
Thank you.
any other questions before we get to this wheel of names? This is the list of names I have so far. So yeah. I should say if they didn't last to the end that they shouldn't get a prize, but I'm just joking. All right, let's spin this wheel. Everyone that's present, do you see your name before I spin? And again, this was an awesome session, and you will be in the email with the link momentarily. And by the end of the week, you will get another email with the YouTube link as well. So good job. All right, let's spin. Wow. All right, Felicia, you are the winner. So I will be texting you to ask you what kind of gift card that you would like. All right. But I thank everyone for joining.